Welcome to Gather In, where you'll hear stories of conversion to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. If you have an interesting story to tell, please go to our Instagram page or send us an email to gatherin@proton.me. Before we start this week's episode, could I ask a small favour? If you could just like and subscribe and follow, but most importantly, leave a small comment when you've finished watching or listening. It'll make it a little bit easier for other people to find the Gathering podcast on whatever platform you're on. Thanks. Welcome everybody to today's edition of the Gathering podcast. We are joined today by my good friend Stephanie Rose Coleridge Woodford. Now, the reason I know Stephanie's full name is because over the years, and particularly the last little while, I've had the privilege of giving Stephanie a few blessings because Stephanie's not very well. Stephanie has terminal cancer. And we thought we'd take this opportunity today because we're just really not too sure how much longer Stephanie's going to be with us. And so here we are. And you're feeling pretty good, aren't you, Steph, today?
Yes, I'm having a good day today. I went to church, I enjoyed the meeting, and I'm looking forward to sharing my story with Murray so that he can share it with my friends and those whom I love.
Yeah. And just as an aside, well, it's part of today. Today is the 2nd of February. It's a fast Sunday. Stephanie got up and brought her testimony. And interestingly, her good friend Betty Frew, who is on a previous edition of the podcast, Betty, who is also, we're not too sure how much longer Betty's going to be with us, but she got up and brought testimony as well. So it was a really, really good testimony. Meeting today, I felt, Steph. You felt the same way, I think.
Yes, it was lovely. It was lovely for Betty to share it at the same time because she and I are both travelling in the same direction at the moment towards the eternal life. And it's wonderful that we both have a strong testimony of the gospel of Jesus Christ, that we will be able to meet our loved ones in the spirit world. And that is a real comfort and joy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Steph, I've heard your story a few times over the years. I've particularly heard your story about how you met Neville. So I think we might save that up for a little bit later on in our interview. But I think right at the moment, I think it'd be nice to hear about your childhood and growing up and how you came to become a member of the church, perhaps. You start wherever you want, Steph, and I might jump in every now and then and ask a question if I've lost track of where you're at, only just to clarify it for anyone who's listening. But basically, Steph, the time is yours, and we'll see how we go.
Okay. Well, I grew up as a child just post-war. I was born in 1941. My father was away for quite a long time during the war, and I met him. I only remember meeting him when I was about 3 or 4 years old, when he came back from New Guinea, and I can remember meeting him, and I was swinging on a gate in my backyard, in my front yard, and the man in the photograph came down the road, and I recognised him from the man in the photograph. And I was very, very excited, and I was swinging on the gate, and I was so excited to see the man in the photograph that was my father. I was so excited, actually, that I wet my panties. I was only 4 years old, but because seeing in the man in the photograph made me very excited. Father loved us, and he was so thrilled to be home. And we shortly after settling in Glenbervie, which was where my parents ended up buying a beauty salon, and I lived there for a little while, and then my parents bought a shop, a hairdressing salon, and they started doing hairdressing and were very successful. But shortly after that, my father and mother bought another salon, and then they bought other businesses over the years, and they were very successful in business. Sadly, things didn't work out terribly well for them with their relationship, and there was a slight time where there was some friction in the relationship, but they got back together and had a very wonderful marriage years later, and we had a great time as a family. We ended up living in Wangaratta, which was the most exciting and wonderful time of my life. We lived on Painters Island, which was like just a beautiful place to live for kids. We moved there, and it was a very, very happy time. We lived on Painters Island where we lived in a huge tent, which we loved and we enjoyed very much. And this tent was a massive, massive, great big tent. And my father made it into a complete, like a house. It was amazing.
Right.
Because
Stephanie,
there were no houses available in Wangaratta.
can I
There
just
was a
ask there,
terrible
Steph,
shortage of houses.
what year
Yeah.
are we talking about here? What
Well,
decade?
I was about 6 at the time, so it'd be 1947.
Right.
And at the time, there was terrible housing shortage in Australia, and consequently, we could not get a house. But eventually, we got a house that became available, and we lived in the caravan, in the tent, and had the happiest time of my life. It was amazing that we had so much fun. I learned how to swim when I was living there. I learned how to play softball and all sorts of wonderful sports. And instead of being sad or lonely or anything, it was just the most exciting time for a child living in this wonderful big tent. It was divided into 5 rooms. And my nana, who she was widowed, came to live with us. It's hard to believe that 3 children could live in a caravan and be, not a caravan, in a tent and be happy. It was amazing.
I can imagine.
I
can imagine. It was really
for
great.
kids, it was an exciting time.
This was
And
on and off.
eventually we got held of a house that was for rent at the Painters Island, and then we eventually got a house that was available.
So, Stephanie, can I just clarify this? Painters Island is an island in the Wangaratta River. Is that right?
Yes, yes, it was a tent in a caravan park.
Okay, so the island you could get to
Yeah.
it from the other
wasn't
side of
an
the river.
island. It wasn't an island. It was just called Painters Island. And it was called Painters Island because it was such a beautiful, beautiful place. And people camped there. So that was why it was called Painters Island, because people camped there. And because it was so beautiful, a lot of artists would live there because of the terrible housing that was at the time after the war, because of the housing shortage. So it was similar to a time like now, where there wasn't any houses for rent. And we actually were traveling up to Brisbane to live, and my parents stayed at Painters Island because there was nowhere else to get accommodation. My brother had got sick on the way to Brisbane, and that's why they camped there for the night. And then they could not get accommodation. So it's a rather mixed up thing. And eventually we stayed there, and my father got work in Wangaratta and got a very, very good job. And my mother started a beauty salon, and we ended up staying there forever, almost, for the next, I suppose, 10 or 15 years. And we ended up getting a house at Painters Island and living there until I was in Form 1 at school. And in that time, we bought a house, and accommodation became easier.
Yeah. Stephanie, can I just ask something with your family and we've got through your primary school years, basically. Was your family religious at all? Did you have any, were you going to church?
My mother, yes, my parents had faith in the gospel of Jesus Christ. They taught me to say the Lord's Prayer. They were good people that lived the principles of the gospel in their life. They were always encouraged us to be truthful and honest in our dealings and to be kind and generous. My mother taught me scriptures, different scriptures that she appealed to her. One of the things that I remember, she taught me that one of the scriptures that I really remember very, very clearly was about the love of Christ to those people that he comes in contact with, and to do unto others, all those nice things that are important to children, to have a good attitude towards other people and to love other people and not to judge them badly, but to realize that we have faults and weaknesses. She taught me a beautiful saying, which stayed in my heart forever, and that was a poem or a written poem. I think it was by a singer, actually, by a gentleman who was a writer of essays and things, and it was very meaningful to me, and I'll recite it to you. It said, "When the one great scorer comes, he'll write beside your name, not how you won or how you lost, but how you played the game." I was mad keen on sport, and at the time when that was taught to me, I only thought of it as a sport. It was years later that I realized that actual saying is not just for sport, it's for everybody to think about really what life is all about, and that's the idea of living a life that is purposeful and meaningful, and loving everybody as the Lord loves you.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Steph. Steph, I'm just going to ask you to, when you start talking again, to look at the camera again for me. Maybe not all the time, but sort of look directly at the phone so we can see your eyes sometime, because it makes a little bit of a difference. I know you're pretty tired, huh? You going okay? You going okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to keep on going? But yeah, just try and look at the camera for me, like you're talking to me. You can see the little photo. Oh, you can just see the little picture of me, can't you?
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
To do that.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I can.
Anyway, that was a lovely thing to learn, and it's been very meaningful.
Yeah.
To me, very meaningful.
Okay. So you got to start high school, and did you were still in Wangaratta? You went to high school in Wangaratta?
I loved my sport in high school.
Yeah.
I just lived for my sport. And I really excelled at school. I did well because I loved school and I loved learning. And I had great fun with my sport. I met a lovely girl that I was very fond of, and her name was Anna, and she was Italian. And we were the best of friends. And another girl called Anne, and we really excelled at sport and loved that time together. When I left school, I finished school and I decided to do nursing, and I got a scholarship to do nursing. I had a bursary to either do nursing or teaching, and I chose teaching because I didn't want to have the expense of having to go to going to college and studying. So I went nursing, and that way I didn't have to pay for anything. I went to Melbourne. I went to the Royal Melbourne Hospital School of Nursing, and I studied nursing when I was 18. Stayed there until I graduated when I was 18, and I then worked at the Royal Melbourne, and then I worked at I worked while I was studying. I worked at the Royal Children's. I worked at the Royal Melbourne. I worked at the Royal Melbourne and the Royal Women's, and also Fairfield Infectious Diseases Hospital. After I graduated, I worked for some time at a place called Lady Duggan, which was a hospital for rehabilitation for children with disabilities. It would have been the first rehab type of hospital, which was for children with disabilities, and these disabilities were things like post polio, and they were very, very lovely children who lived in the country. And a woman came and did her physiotherapy and rehab, and it was exciting, a wonderful time seeing this woman teach them how to use their limbs again. It was quite different from any rehab we have today.
Yeah.
It was very, very, very pleasing.
Was it while you were working there that you took the children into town near Christmas time?
Yes.
Is that right?
Now, there are a lovely group of girls that actually went and took this little boy in to see Father Christmas. Oh no, they didn't take him into. They took him in to see the Christmas things at Maya.
The Myers
And
windows.
yes, and I really was very impressed with the fact that they wanted to. This little boy who was a Down syndrome, and he was a ward of the state, and they did all little things for him and kind things. And I actually decided that I should do something for him because these lovely girls who were single girls were just so kind and lovely to him. I felt that I had to join in and do something as well. And it was really, really trying to look good, which doesn't please me at all. But at the time, that's what I did. And I was so thrilled to be able to do that because it was something that I could do for this little boy who was a ward of the state. And he was a Downs as well. And we had a fun day. And I bought him a little pair of jeans. And I can remember him being so excited over it. And he was so excited because they had about 6 zippers in them. And he just kept saying, they've got zippers all over them. And he was so excited about getting this present. But I realized then how much fun it was giving. And I suppose that was the first time I'd really done anything for anyone else except myself.
Okay,
and the joy that it gave me.
So that was just you by yourself taking this little boy
Yeah.
in to see
And
the
while
Myers
I was,
windows.
yes. And I bought him these little pair of trousers that were covered in zippers. They were the first lot of jeans.
Yeah.
And I realised the joy of giving then.
Mm.
Anyway, after we came back from that, on the way to there, I met missionaries in the street. It was terribly, terribly hot day. It was a real summer, 40 degrees. And I met them in the street, and they stopped me and asked me a few questions. And quite frankly, I was glad to stop because it was so hot. And I was quite glad to stop and talk to them, not just because when Myers Street is busy at that time of year, no one stopped. It was just so hot and busy and so many people. And I stopped and talked to them, and they told me about the gospel of Jesus Christ, and they told me about the plan of salvation, and they told me a whole lot of other things. And I listened to them, and they gave me a pamphlet, and I thanked them for it. And I went home to my flat, which was supplied with my job. And incredibly, I had a complete belief in what they told me that about the gospel of Jesus Christ, the plan of salvation. And I was amazed at how I could believe everything that they said. Immediately I had a testimony of Jesus Christ, that the belief that I'd had before was true. And I've never stopped believing in the gospel of Jesus Christ as they told it to me. And that was the fact that Jesus is the Christ and that the gospel is true. The interesting part was that I believed everything that they said about the plan of salvation, and I found that extraordinary. But I really, really knew that Jesus Christ was the Son of God and God was the Father. And I had never been taught that before, but I believed it in my heart. And it was very, very awakening for me. It was amazing that they taught what I believed in anyway.
Yeah. Look, I think that's the case for a lot of people when they first hear the missionaries speak and they read the Joseph Smith's testimony and read his first vision. And one of the things that really stands out from that is the fact that he sees two beings, he said, as whose brightness and glory defy all description, standing above me in the air. There were two beings. There were two beings, you know, and so many people say,
Jesus,
of course they're two separate beings.
Christ. Yes, Jesus is Christ and the Son of God.
Yeah.
That is an amazing enlightening. And I'm having trouble with my speech because of my cancer and telling it to you, but I really want people to know that that is so important, to know that they are two separate beings, that they are God the Father and God the Son are two separate beings.
Yeah.
Because without that knowledge, everything is the same as every other church.
Yeah.
Missionaries came to see me and picked up the pamphlet, and I had the lessons.
Yeah.
And I knew then exactly what was happening. And as soon as they said to me, you know, you need to be baptized, I was baptized.
Yeah. No, but before that, when you first met them on the street and they started talking to you on the street when you were in the city with the little boy, did you know who they were, what church they were from? Was that
No, I knew nothing about them at all.
Right.
Nothing about them at all.
And so your
I had
parents...
never heard of them. I'd heard of this. They asked me if I'd heard of the Salt Lakes. I heard of them about different parts of America and stuff, but I had no idea what why they were there or anything about them. I had no
Yeah.
idea at all.
Yeah.
But I knew that I had to investigate it because
Mm.
I just knew that the message they had for me was really, really important, and I need to follow it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And quite a few of my friends were quite horrified, really, because they'd heard negative things about the church.
Yeah, I was gonna say, had your parents ever warned you not to talk to the Mormon missionaries?
Yes, my parents, I gave the message to my parents. I actually told my parents about my membership, joining
Yeah.
the church, and they
Yeah.
were a bit horrified. My mother was a bit horrified because she'd had, she'd sort of heard about Latter-day Saints and heard some negative things about them by
Mm.
other churches, but
Yeah.
they didn't stop me. They didn't stop me from joining. They were very open to it, but not
Mm.
pleased.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
when they saw the change in me,
Yeah.
they were absolutely thrilled
Yeah.
because I didn't change. I mean, I was still a good person. I was honest in dealings with my
Mm.
fellow men. Um, but they were thrilled to see that I had faith and that I had started going to church at all. And they were absolutely delighted with the choice of my husband. They
Oh,
thought
good.
he was lovely. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
oh, good. Now, I don't know if you
yeah.
want to get onto that story yet, Steph. Where the
Oh,
missionaries
yes,
met,
it's a fun story.
they met you on the street. The missionaries came and they
Yeah,
came to collect the pamphlet from you, which is probably
yeah.
just they probably really weren't wanting to collect the pamphlet. They probably really wanted to know what you thought of it
Well,
all.
they were pretty impressed because they gave me a beautiful copy of the Bible, and
Really?
it was a combination Bible and the Book of Mormon, and it was a hard copy. It was not just a cheap copy; it was an expensive, beautiful copy, which they must have spent quite a lot of money on. And missionaries don't come with a lot of money, but they called me what was called a golden Goldie because I was so obviously converted.
Yeah,
I thought that was quite nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
So how long, roughly, how long after they came to your flat to collect the brochure pamphlet, how long
It
after that
was
did you
only
start?
only a few days after I I joined the church that they came with the copy, and I left where I was working,
Yeah,
and I went back to Wangaratta for
yeah.
Easter. So I
Right.
met at Easter. I met at Christmas, and I married I joined the church at Easter, around Easter time. Yes, so it
Right.
wasn't very long.
Okay. And so at Easter time, you just decided to go back up and stay for a little while
Wangaratta.
with your
I
parents
was
in
planning.
Wangaratta.
I was planning that I might go to England or somewhere to work,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
nothing happened. I met Neville instead.
Okay. So tell us about. So this was the first time when you went back to Wangaratta. You decided to attend church in Wangaratta.
Yes,
A branch.
I went on Easter Sunday.
There was a branch of
I
the
went
church
up
up
at
there in
Easter and went to church at
Wangaratta, and
Easter. Went to
okay.
the church hall, which was where they met because they didn't have a chapel.
Yeah.
And Neville was conducting Sunday school.
Okay.
Yeah,
Neville, who you
and he,
eventually married and had 8 children with.
yes, yes. But the
So,
interesting thing about the meeting Neville was the talk he gave at Sunday school.
yeah,
In those days, we had Sunday school first, and then we had sacrament meeting in the evening. And the thing that impressed me about Neville was he gave a lovely talk. His best friend had died that week in a plane accident. And the talk he gave was so spiritual about his belief in eternal life and the plan of salvation that it moved me a great deal. And strangely enough, And I find this hard to even say because it's so unusual. And I don't know whether I should actually repeat it, but I will. He said that I would be the father of his children in my head.
He
In
didn't
my
say
head.
that.
He said it in my head.
Yeah. He
He said that in
did.
my head.
Yeah.
He said that in my head. I just had these thoughts that this man will be the father of my children,
Wow.
which was extraordinary because
Yeah.
I wasn't planning to marry. I was planning to maybe go to England and do nursing there. It's what a lot of nurses did. And he was talking nothing about marriage or anything,
Mm.
but I really had this strong feeling, and yet I wasn't even interested in marrying at the time. And it was quite a strange thing to think. And I didn't, I heard it in my mind, but I couldn't believe that it would ever come true. And about 3 months later, I did marry him. And he was the father of my 8 children. So there you go. You don't know what's happening in the future,
That's
but
right.
sometimes you are told. And we were very happy. We had our ups and downs and our trials and tribulations, but I loved him till I died, till he passed, and I still love him. And I'm looking forward to meeting up with him in the eternities. And we were sealed in the temple of the Lord, in the temple in New Zealand, for time and all eternity,
What
time when
what
I will be with him again.
what year was it you were married, Steph, in the New Zealand temple?
3 years after we were married, it was very, very expensive to get to New Zealand. So Becky was 3, and so we had 3 children. She was only 2 or 3 years old. I can't remember exactly the date, but she was only a little girl. I know she slipped off the seat and broke her front tooth, which was rather sad.
Okay, so I just realised this now, Steph, that you were married civilly
Yes,
here in
yes. I was married
Australia,
civilly at Fairfield Hospital in
Fairfield Chapel.
Geelong, in New Zealand. We were sealed in the temple, but we were married at Wangaratta.
Yeah,
Not at Wangaratta. Sorry, we were married at at um, at the chapel in Melbourne.
yeah,
When Becky was 3 years old, and then he was 2, and Becky was 1. So we had a lovely wedding where President McConkie actually blessed the food on the blessing on the food, and President McConkie had taken me to church on occasions,
yeah,
and he was the president he was the mission president at the time,
yeah,
and it was lovely that he was able to bless the food
yeah,
at the wedding
yeah,
and just have some part in it. He used to
yeah.
take me occasionally to young women's. So it was a very wonderful time. He knew my father-in-law personally, and that's why he probably came, not because of me, but because of my father-in-law.
Right. This for those listening, this is Bruce McConkie we're talking about, who later became a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles and was one of the
Yes,
very
yes,
perhaps one of the more well-known members of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles.
yes,
So
yes.
so
He was
so
mission president at the time.
yeah. So I just want to clarify all that Stephanie. So you were baptized in Melbourne. You went and met Neville when you went home to Wangaratta. You met Neville.
Yeah,
You were married only about 3 months later. But
yeah,
then and so after your civil marriage in Fairfield Chapel, I think from what you're
Yes,
saying. You then went a few years later to be sealed in the
three
New
three
Zealand
years
temple.
later. As soon as we
3
had
years
enough
later.
money to do it, it was
Yeah,
very, very expensive to go to New Zealand. And
yeah, yeah.
and we were able to get the money. I think I sold an insurance policy, my
Right.
insurance policy,
Okay.
and we were able to go there with that money, and
Right.
some money from Horry and Hilda. They helped us get there, and yeah, so it was but it was wonderful that we were able to go there. It was an absolute disaster going to the temple because there was a mix-up in our accommodation. There were a whole lot of people from some island somewhere that got our accommodation accidentally, and we had no accommodation. But there was a wonderful couple called Brother and Sister Gary. She was the ward mission leader, a ward Relief Society president. He was the branch president, and they gave us accommodation because our accommodation had been mixed up. But everything worked out beautifully, and we stayed with them, and everything worked out even better than if we'd stayed at the branch, at their house. They just made us feel welcome. We were able to stay there, and they looked after our children while we went sightseeing. We just had an absolutely marvellous time and became very dear friends with the Garys. And later on, they came to visit us in Wangaratta.
Fantastic. You you
Mm.
you you can very easily make those lifelong friends, can't you, when you
Yes,
first become a member of the
they've
church?
long passed on now, but
Yeah,
wonderful, wonderful memories.
yeah. Wow. So, Steph, you're now in your can I say that you're in your early 80s? I'm pretty close there, saying you're
Yes,
in your
I'm
early 80s.
83 now. I'm 83 now, and my faith is stronger than ever.
Old you were when you graduated from nursing and you were taking that young boy into town and you met the missionaries. You were quite young then, what, 18 or 19 perhaps?
I was 19 years. No,
19,
no, I was 21.
21. Okay.
21. Yeah.
How do you
Well,
think your life has been different because of
I've
what you
made lots of mistakes. I've been, I've made lots of mistakes. But gee, I've made lots of good decisions.
yeah,
And one of them is staying faithful to the belief that I was given by such a privilege of given that permission when I received my knowledge of the gospel. I am so, so grateful that I have stayed faithful. I've made lots of mistakes. I've had to repent of a lot of things. I've, but I am so grateful that I have got a testimony of the gospel
yeah, yeah,
because without it, there is nothing to look forward to. Nothing if you don't believe that. There's only death. And to have that knowledge is such a privilege.
yeah.
And I'm so comforted by the fact that in maybe a few weeks or days or whatever, that I have that knowledge that I will be with my family again, not just my husband, but with my parents and loved ones and my
Mm.
nana whom I adored. It's such a comfort. It's unbelievable, really. And I'm actually surprised at how much comfort it gives me. And there's no fear at all. It's not just, it's not a belief, it's a knowledge. It's more than a belief, it's knowledge.
Steph, we might just jump forward about let's see, we might jump forward about 18 or 19 years now
Hmm.
to 1981. In 1981, you and all your kids at the time. Now, I think you might have had 7 kids then.
when
you were
you met
living,
us.
yeah, you were in the Geelong ward, and I was a convert to the church in the Geelong ward. I was
Mm.
baptised in November of 1981, and I met a number of people, of course, at this time, and a particular young lady who had just come home from being at school in the church college in New Zealand caught my eye. Susie, your oldest daughter, and Susie and I became friends and dated for a little while. And that was when I really got to know you and Neville and all the kids. And I can't remember how long after that Ben was born. What year was Ben born?
He was not long after. He was born whilst he was in New Zealand.
Oh, right. Okay. So Ben
Yeah.
was born. Yeah.
Yes, and
Ben was a baby
someone,
then. Yeah.
yeah, and I was given a fare. Someone helped us get over there. I forget how we got there, but I think my family or someone helped me to pay for the ticket to get over there to show
Right.
the girls their little brother.
Oh, wow.
And I stayed with the Garys,
Yeah.
which were the people that boarded us when we were sealed. So that was how you got to meet Sam.
Yeah.
Ben.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Stephanie, over all those years, it's now I'm talking 44 years or so ago that
Yes,
since
yes, you're a
since
dear friend and an
1981,
old friend.
and it was it was it was pretty hard, I think, for a few of us. Excuse me, it's my turn to get a bit teary. Um, when Neville got sick, uh,
Yeah.
what was that? About 4 years ago or so. Neville got pancreatic cancer, and pancreatic cancer is not a good one to get, is it?
No,
It's not a good
no,
one. I mean, no cancers are good. Pancreatic cancer is one of those ones where, when you get pancreatic cancer, you don't have too long. But he had some
yeah,
surgery, which kept him going for uh, a couple of years, I think.
yes. But
Pretty,
it was
pretty
a
much.
not a very easy 3 years. It was,
No, no, it's pretty tough, wasn't it?
yeah, it was tough because he chose to have the surgery because he was such a fit man. And I think
Mm.
living the word of wisdom made him, very, very fit to survive. And, but unfortunately, it wasn't to be. But
Yeah,
he was very accepting of it and never complained. But it was
yeah,
tough. It was tough to watch,
yeah,
and it was
yeah,
tough for him. But it was more tough, I think, on the family, the children.
yeah. Neville was very fit for a long time. I remember for a while there, and I can't remember how long it was. Neville worked for me, and
Yeah,
I guess he was probably getting close to 70 when he was working for me. And I used to talk
yeah.
about going surfing, and he used to talk about going to the gym and going to the pool. And somehow one day, I don't know how I did it, I talked him into coming surfing with us. And so I'm pretty sure there was myself, Bruce Walsh, who passed
We
away
loved
several
as
years
well.
ago. Now we love Bruce, and Neville came surfing with us one day. He paddled out with us, and the surf wasn't particularly small, but
I don't
he,
know about this.
he paddled out at Point Impossible with us and came surfing. And I think he only came once, but
Yeah,
it was
skiing
just
was his
it was amazing that he
skiing
was
was his
able to do that.
yeah, skiing was his thing. He still skied with tremendous vigor and stuff on the slopes, and he was very, very proud of his skiing ability.
Well, he was a
He didn't ever
champion.
lose it. He was,
Yeah,
and he enjoyed that very much.
yeah. Was he in the
Uh,
Olympics?
no, he was chosen, but he didn't. He was chosen as if he wanted to, but
Yeah.
he couldn't afford that. But he was chosen to go in the if he wanted to. But it was in the days when they the skiing in Australia was so small that people just couldn't afford it. And it was very early days. But a good friend of his did go, his best mate, and he skied at Squaw Valley. But Neville couldn't afford it, or, to go if he'd have gone in, he'd have been in the cross country.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, there was always a bit of a competition between us, because we have a dear friend who's still alive, and he took us water skiing regularly in the summer, and it was always Neville's angst that I actually got up the first time on water skis, but I was hopeless at snow skiing. But I got up the first time on one ski, and that was always a bit of a bit of competition between us about that, because I was pathetic at snow skiing, but I was really, really good at water skiing first off, and it went against the grain. It was always a bit of a joke.
Yeah. I can imagine. So
Stephanie, the thing is, you do the opposite with water skiing as you do with snow skiing. You lean back with water skiing, and you lean forward with snow skiing. And I just thought it was crazy leaning forward on a slope. I couldn't get it at all.
Yeah. So we've digressed a little bit there, but that's a fun thing to know.
One thing to remember.
Yeah. Now, Stephanie, over the years, as being a member of the church, you've served in a lot of different callings, haven't you?
Yes.
Can you tell us, the sort of callings you've had, and what you've learned over the years?
I loved serving in as a visiting teacher, and I loved serving especially loved when I served in primary. I had the most amazing experience in primary with 3 absolutely amazing women who were also called, who were just so beautiful, and a group of teachers and leaders that I served at that time at a very difficult time, because it was when we changed from the chapel to renovating the chapel and making it bigger. And the group of people that were called to serve at that time were extraordinary. They never missed a meeting. We served in a difficult time where they were having to do it in a schoolhouse, and it was just wonderful, because I think 100% attendance to every meeting that we had, and it was just an exciting and wonderful time. Then we came back to the chapel, and it was all renovated and big enough for every class, and that was really exciting. And I had girls that were sisters that were just so dedicated. That was really exciting. I enjoyed Relief Society, but unfortunately, when I was in Relief Society serving, I got very bad fracture, I think, in my leg, and I had to be released. But the best time was definitely with Marion McClure and Christine Ratajik, and I think Mr. George. She was a secretary. They were just absolutely marvellous, and never missed a meeting. And that was really a very special spiritual time for me. I'm sorry I haven't mentioned anyone else, but everyone else that served in that time were just absolutely wonderful. When you have good support, when you have a calling, it's so important to have that support.
Marion and Christine have both passed on. So you might be able to reform that primary presidency in the spirit world, Steph, and get together with those two again pretty soon.
Well, I'll have to learn a bit more before that, I think. Anyway, it's been a wonderful journey, and I've been really, really blessed, especially the friends that I've made in church. Um, and you, Murray, have been a wonderful, wonderful support of Margot and everyone else at church. It's just joyous to be alive at this time. I can't tell you how much it's meant to me in the last few weeks, especially with the joy that I've had. In my last days, I find that really extraordinary. I have been happiest that I've ever happy in my life in the last few weeks, which doesn't make terribly much sense, really, but it's true. And most people would find that rather hard to believe.
Part of that, of course, is your great faith. You know, you're not too far away from.
My next journey.
Yeah, yeah. You're getting close to reuniting with Neville.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for that knowledge.
Yeah. Steph,
So grateful.
you've listened to a few of my podcast episodes, and you know
Yes,
that
I've really enjoyed them, Murray. Really
I
enjoyed them. They've been amazing.
thank you. And what I like to do towards the end is ask you if there's a particular aspect, a particular doctrine, or a particular program in the church that is your sort of favorite thing. And I also like people to bear their testimony for us at the end of our interview as well, just like you did this morning in sacrament meeting. You get a second chance to bear your testimony today if you'd like to. But
Yes,
is
I
there
would. I really would.
is there sort of a favorite part of the gospel to you that you love particularly more than
Oh,
anything else?
just the thing that really, really grabs me every time is the fact that Jesus is the Christ and God is the Father. Because when I was a little girl and strangely enough, this was in not the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, it was another church that believed in Jesus Christ. But when I was made a member of the Church of England, and I came up and took the sacrament for the first time as a child, as a baptized member of the Church of England. I had a very, very, very strong testimony of the Saviour. And as I knelt at the altar, I was told, or in words actually, that I would kneel at Jesus' feet. And it was such a strong, strong feeling that I have never forgotten it. And I was only 8 or 9 years old. But I knew that I would kneel at my Lord's feet when I returned. And that's a pretty powerful experience.
Absolutely.
And I don't tell it to everybody, but I know that I will see Jesus at some stage in my journey. And I will kneel at his feet and I will thank him for the atonement and the sacrifice of his Son, Jesus Christ. And I leave you this testimony in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thanks, Stephanie. I know it's been a little bit hard today doing this. It's hard because of your health condition at the moment, and you've done extremely well. You've done extremely well. And,
thank you. Thank you.
I'm
you
sure.
for the opportunity, Murray, and for the opportunity you give to so many other people that have given so much joy to us.
Yeah.
It's been really a wonderful journey with you, and I hope I'll be around to see a few more of these little podcasts.
Yeah, it's just a pity I didn't start doing it when Neville was still alive, huh?
Yes, okay.
would
Yeah,
have
it's
been
just
great.
been so fun to listen to them and some
Yeah,
of the beautiful, beautiful testimonies they've been. And I've enjoyed Betty's lovely, lovely company and testimony, you know, while we're going through this journey together. She's
yeah,
been such a joy to me and such a comfort. You know, it's been a fun time. It's rather a difficult time.
yeah.
It hasn't been a hard time, but it's
Mm,
been a journey of great importance. You know, and maybe, you know, just having that knowledge or listening to me will comfort other people who are going through this same journey.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
hope so, because it's been such a comfort to me with this knowledge.
Stephanie, just
Anyway, you
before,
take care, Murray.
no, before we go, I've got something else to ask you. Okay.
Okay.
And we don't have to, we can edit this out if you don't want to do it or whatever, but I'm just wondering if you'd like to speak directly to your children.
I'd like to tell my children how much I love them, how much I appreciate them, and what a joy they've been, and a privilege to be a mother of 8 beautiful children who are so kind, successful, and valiant, and have been wonderful examples to other people and helped them in so many ways. I mean, they have all been really, really amazing children, and they've had a very difficult time, especially with their father's illness and especially with the trials and tribulations that have come through them because of their brother's serious accident. That has been a huge, huge trial that we've all had to go through with him having a serious accident. And I'm so grateful that they've been able to survive that. And I love them dearly. And no matter what they do or say, I'll never stop loving them. And I really, really appreciate all the love they've given me. I know they love me, and that is such a comfort.
Yeah. And so you had eight children. How many
Yes,
grandchildren?
yes,
How many
yes.
grandchildren do you
Oh,
have now, Steph? And
I've
can
got
you talk to them for a minute?
14 natural ones and 15 altogether. And
Yeah.
every one of them is absolute joy. And the latest one is a great grandchild who was born incredibly on my birthday. And she was born with 4 holes in her heart. And she has made a wonderful, wonderful progress. And I get the most gorgeous little letters from her telling me, "Hi, Grandma, great grandma, I've cleaned my teeth." And "Hi, Grandma, I'm riding on my bike." And she gives me these absolutely joyous little letters. And she's had 4 holes in the heart repaired and she's doing well. And to think that the prophet of the Lord invented was part of the invention of that heart lung machine that saved her life. And I just think that is an extraordinary coincidence. And I'm so grateful that he did that, because she is a joyous, beautiful child with so much fun in her heart. And oh, she's such a sweetheart. I'm hoping to see her again, but I don't know what my chances are. But I hope to see her again before I pass on. And hopefully, you know, we'll have the opportunity of that. But I know I will always see her in the eternities. And I'll be able to, I know that we are able to still contact people from the other side. I'm pretty sure of that. There's one of the things I'm pretty sure of. Some things I'm not 100% sure of, but others I am. And that's one that I am sure of, that we'll be able to see people from the eternities. Not everyone would have that knowledge, but I believe it's more than just belief. I believe that I will be able to look down upon these wonderful children and grandchildren and see what they're up to, which is nice and comforting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Stephanie, once again, it's been an absolute joy to do this interview with you today. I'm glad that
Thank you. It's a privilege, Murray.
I'm glad you were well enough to get through it. I'm sure you'll go and lay down and have a little bit of a sleep now.
Yes, I think I might just do that.
Don't worry, I might too.
Okay.
But,
Thank
thanks
you,
again.
and Margot, and especially a big thanks to Matt and Bon, who've made my last days here so wonderful and comfortable living with them. I mean, what a privilege to be able to live with my beautiful son Matthew and his wife, and to be looked after like a princess. It's just so amazing. They are just the sweetest, gentlest souls, and I'm so grateful for them.
You're very fortunate,
Yeah.
Steph. Thank you again. I'm going to stop recording now. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Love you, Murray.
Love you too. Bye.
If you have an interesting story to tell, please contact us via our Instagram page or send an email to gatherin@proton.me.